All right, let's turn to this now. Patriotic Alliance leader Gayton McKenzie has defended the poor attendance at his party's 10th birthday celebration over the weekend. He claims many couldn't get back into Orlando Stadium after getting food, while others were stranded due to broken down buses. Political analyst Sandile Swana joins us now for more on this. Dr. Swana, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. Many have said that the smaller parties are punching way above their weight, but it's the nature of coalitions where there could certainly be kingmakers. But in essence, when you then drill down to the mechanics and the nitty-gritties of how these parties are being run, they are not really supposed to be functioning at the level where sometimes these coalition arrangements put them. Is this a typical example of that?
I think we need to separate some of the issues that don't really. I took some time to look at the numbers behind the PA. I totaled up the numbers of votes that they got in the municipalities here in Gauteng. I came to 86,000. What was actually disappointing is that in the national election of 2019, I think they got 6,660 votes, and no seat in the National Assembly. So these are guys who can get very localized, enclosed areas and get a ward in there. They don't have the infrastructure to be a provincial party. Even if you look at the PA especially, they have number of votes they got in the Western Cape is negligible. They are a non-entity, actually. But when you go to local municipalities, they do get something. So they've got a long way to go. And when you look that they are now 10 years old and you compare them to the EFF, for example, they are not really making good progress at all. Now, what they do have, coming to your point of punching above their weight, is opportunism. In the municipal sector, they've been able to really be very, very opportunistic and exploit the situation to the fullest extent. But they are not a solid party at this stage.
Would you say they would benefit more in their strategy, as you put it, to focus on those local structures where they are doing well and maybe solidify their position there than wanting to launch a broader national campaign?
Yes. You see, the thing about it is that there's a number of things they've got to do. One of them is exactly what you are saying. And they've got to actually get the quality of people at a local level who can actually deliver proper services, who are credible with the communities, and build a track record of success. For instance, the IFP is a relatively smaller party, but over the years, when they put a slogan like September, they trust us, they can back themselves up, certainly in KZN. If you give them a job to do, they can get the job done. This PA party at this stage cannot point us to a group of people that can actually deliver services. And that is where they need to build. Secondly, they need to clarify their ideology. I think the ideology that they are pursuing now is taking us back to the Stone Ages. And there's no politics there. It's just crude, almost racism and xenophobia. So they are at an infancy stage. That is not to say they will not attract people who don't understand politics to their party, but as a national asset, they are still a long way to becoming a national asset in South Africa.
So when they launched them about 10 years ago, I remember much of the debate that we were having with Gayton McKenzie was around the fact that you are starting a party based on identity politics. Of course, he would push back, and he still pushes back and says, well, look at my deputy president, Kenny Goodman is not colored. And you are saying even today at the stadium that, well, we decided to bring this celebration here in Orlando Stadium. Could have taken it to El Dorado Park, could have taken it any other colored community. But we want to end this kind of, what do you say, demarcation basically that separates, I suppose, colored communities from coming to Soweto. Is he winning in that attempt?
Yeah, no, I read that story and I actually listened to him as well. That is a far-fetched argument. You know, for instance, Soweto is my hometown. And because of apartheid, you had Lenasia and Eldorado Park, Westbury, and other surrounding areas. And those communities were separated. Even so, though, you know, it's so tricky, this thing, because some of the so-called colored people never really accepted the colored identity. For instance, in my own street, we had a chap called Stemper, who was a cricketer, fantastic colored kind of cricketer in Rockville, Soweto. So my view is that you can't be artificial about building those relationships. People who live in Soweto, Eldorado Park, Westbury, and all these areas need to interact. And as young activists, when we were students, we had what some people may call colored comrades. And this issue of colors and this and the other was not a problem. We never really had the problem in the 80s going into the early 90s. So this politics of Gayton McKenzie take us back to the tricameral parliament and all that sort of thing. And I'm sorry to use this language, and I shouldn't be using it, but we have had some of the most potent revolutionaries, most potent political leaders and thinkers coming out of the so-called colored communities. And we didn't have a problem. They led us, we led together with them, and some of them are still active till today in the communities. So Gayton McKenzie is actually going up the wrong path, the wrong garden path, and there are right-wing tycoons and billionaires who are sponsoring this thing. This thing is a racist move.
So let's talk about some of those rather shocking things that he would have mentioned there. It's not a new assertion from him. He said it, I think, again in the 2021 local government elections, that as soon as they are voted in, for example, he says they'll vote us in at 12 p.m. By 3 p.m., I would be at Rahima Musa Hospital unplugging the oxygen of all illegal immigrants who are benefiting from our resources.
That type of statement is, first of all, a criminal statement. That idea is a criminal idea. Outright crime. That is outright crime. That's not politics. Secondly, there is no science, no analysis, no synthesis, no integration of true facts about any of these things he's talking about. For an instance, we had about 4.6, as I recall, million people unemployed in 1994. Today, we're about 12 million unemployed. So unemployment, regardless of how you want to calculate it, has grown. And that unemployment has not grown because of us, the citizens. It has grown because the South African state has been handed over to criminals. It's a gangster state. It's run by criminals. Otherwise, the resources to cater for everybody who is inside the borders of South Africa are already here. The skills, the resources is here. The people who are deprived of services are not deprived because of any foreigner, or a Xhosa is not deprived because of a Zulu is not deprived because of a Motswana. So that whole story that is putting on the table is anti-science, is not based on empirical data. It's wild criminal thinking.
What about his call for national youth service? Suppose it's something that the ANC has tried to also implement as some kind of a program. I remember in the time of Gugile and Gwinte and the Rural Development and Land Reform Department came up with a program of that nature, of some kind of national youth service. I think
to comment on ANC programs is a waste of time. You know, I've listened to Padi Lehutla, the former statistician general, and I understand what Padi is trying to teach us, that Every year, if you talk to Paddy today, or even the current statistician general, they will tell you that by this year, we will have so many babies in South Africa. And then you need to plan for each baby during pregnancy, right up until that child finishes university at 24, 25, that sort of thing. So in South Africa, there is no youth development program of any kind, whether it's preschool or pregnant mothers, all of that is neglected. It's a total chaos. We are not even competitive. Our youth are not competitive to other Africans on the African continent because we have a government that has no time for developing our youth.
Yeah.
So that is the first problem. So we cannot even comment on the ANC. We can comment on what the Boers did for their own people.
Yeah.
I have met guys who already in the early 80s, they served in the army. One of them lives not far from here where I live. He learned how to become an expert in robotics in the South African through the South African National Defense during his national service. And that career took him all over the world. Some of the best computer programmers learned programming in the army, and so on and so forth. So the ANC, not Ramaphosa, not Zuma, not Mbeki, none of them, not Kgalema Motlanthe has launched any youth service that we can write home about. It's not there. It's not competitive. All of it is just symbolic activities that will never improve any youth in South Africa. It's not there.
So a party like Patriotic Alliance wanting to style itself in that sense, to say, well, we will bring a narisek of some sort where we reach out to 18-year-olds who will go to the army, will not get paid 350 to sit at home, but they will actually be doing some training and some work. Is that something that could make them an appealing party?
When I listen to Gayton McKenzie, you know, the problem with some of these things, the ideas, and I think ideas need to be linked to people of substance. We need all of us to share ideas so that people of substance can take those ideas and implement them. At this stage, and perhaps it might even be a failure on my part, I am not even sure that the Patriotic Alliance is achieving the success that when you see them on TV and they are making noise everywhere, but when you look at the IEC results on the ground, they are not there. So they are very, very far from getting to implement a national service in South Africa. They are not going to get there at all. They are very far. Maybe we need to give them 10 to 20 years before they can become a national political party in South Africa. They are not that at all. But the idea of a national service run by the correct political party in South Africa, it is necessary, it is urgent, it needs to be done, but only the elections will tell us who can do that job.
And so, I mean, if we look at that anti-foreigner narrative, I mean, is this also maybe to an extent a warning shot to parties who want to style themselves in that fashion, to say maybe it's not a rallying point that would certainly gain you broader appeal when it comes to the 2024 elections?
Dr. Mdluli, I think that all South Africans, we need to warn all of them, everyone, whether it's the ANC, the DA, any other political party, and any South African, anywhere, at any time. The idea of fueling hatred towards other people must be stopped. The thing about it is that, for instance, in my own household, you look at it this way. My own wife is a woman of Mozambican and Portuguese stock. My son is married to a Venda woman. I am Xhosa speaking. I come from Pondoland, and so on and so forth. My son-in-law is a Zulu. I cannot go around promoting an anti-white, anti-this, anti-that, anti-Zimbabwean, anti-this, anti-that. That idea must be abolished. Some of the people who are most incompetent, who cannot do their jobs, who are not doing their jobs, want to blame every other person for their failures in life. So you are not successful in life because the Malawian is doing something to you. Or you are not successful in life because the Mozambican is doing something to you. People need to get their houses in order, and let's get South Africa into order. All the resources are in surplus in South Africa. We're not short of anything other than leadership.
Sandile Swana, as always, much appreciated. Thank you for your time and your analysis this evening. Political analyst there, Sandile Swana.